My name is Regan Brandon. I'm from Dade County and I'm 13 years old. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in '75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, "If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the Old North Church as a signal light. 1 if by land, and 2 if by sea. And I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm." In the spring of 1775, in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, there were basically 3 groups of people: the Tories, who wanted the British Crown to rule, the Whigs, who wanted to govern themselves, and the people in the middle who thought life was pretty good as it was. At the end of the French and Indian War, Great Britain was in desperate need of money, so they levied new taxes upon the American colonies, which included the Stamp Act and the tax on tea, which later led to the infamous Boston Tea Party of 1773. When the colonists refused to comply with these outrageous new taxes, King George III sent General Thomas Gage over to America to be the military governor and try to enforce England's will on the colonists. But to Gage's surprise and dismay, they still would not pay their taxes. So he decided to do what tyrants had done for hundreds of years when faced with the rebellious populace. He decided to disarm the people. The easiest way to do this was to take all their gunpowder and their ground-best muskets, because there was no source of it in the colonies and it had to be brought in. Gage planned a series of what the colonists called powder raids, but only the first was successful because he had caught them off guard. Soon he heard there was a large store of powder and ammunition in Concord, Massachusetts, about 20 miles west of Boston. So he sent Colonel Francis Smith, described in reports as an overweight, dull man, not known for his leadership skills, but for his ability to follow orders, to Concord on a top secret mission in the middle of the night of April 18, 1775, with 700 to 900 troops to collect the powder. Crossing Boston Harbor, they landed at Leechmere's Point around midnight. Leechmere's Point was a swamp and not anywhere close to where they had intended to land. The men were up to their waist in mud and water, and it was 1 a.m. before they started moving toward Concord. As they marched west, they began to hear warning shots fired all around them. In the distance, they could hear church bells furiously ringing, while on the hills all around them, signal fires had been lit by the colonists. Their mission was no longer a secret, because before they had even crossed Boston Harbor, alert riders such as Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Dr. Samuel Prescott had ridden through the countryside to spread the alarm. Not that the British are coming, because at the time all the colonists were British, but instead they warned the countryside that the regulars were coming out. Historical record is not clear on how the colonists discovered the raid, but it is thought that the warning came from Margaret Kimball Gage, who was born in New Jersey and had great sympathy for the American colonists. She was also the wife of General Thomas Gage. Soon word reached Colonel Smith that alert rider Paul Revere had been captured by a British patrol sent out to intercept people sounding the alarm. Upon being questioned by the British patrol and upon being threatened with death for not speaking, Revere bragged that when they reached Lexington, a small town about 10 miles east of Concord, there would be 500 armed militia waiting for them on the green. Further on, the patrol met 3 men who said there would not be 500 men waiting in Lexington, but 1,000 men instead. Clearly, they had lost the element of surprise. Smith sent 200 men ahead under the command of a young, headstrong Marine lieutenant named Jesse Adair. Adair's mission was to secure the Old North Bridge at Concord, not to engage the colonists. Having been warned by Paul Revere and others that there would be armed militia waiting in Lexington, Adair gave a fateful order to have his men load their muskets. When they reached Lexington, Adair had 2 choices: to take the left road and go around Lexington, straight to Concord, or go down the right road, which would take him around Lexington, but still to Concord. This road would also take him past the waiting militia on the green. As the 200 regulars marched up in front of the 40 to 50 Patriot militia on the green, Captain John Parker, who had been elected the head of the Lexington militia, could be heard to say, "Stand your ground, do not fire unless fired upon, but if they mean to have a war, let it start here." British officers on horseback could be heard yelling, "Disperse, ye rebels, and lay down your arms! Disperse, ye rebels, disperse!" Imagine that. British officers, who had been sent to protect the colonists, ordering them to lay down their arms and disperse. Captain Parker saw they were hopelessly outnumbered, so he ordered his men to disperse. Some did, but others stood their ground. Suddenly, a shot rang out. No one knows who fired the shot, but accounts of the day say it sounded like a pistol, and none of the colonists carried pistols. It was most likely a British officer on horseback. Assuming they were being attacked, the British officers began firing in volleys at the retreating colonists, and then charged them with their bayonets. When Colonel Smith reached Lexington, he was appalled at what he saw and ordered the drummer to sound assembly. To ensure his men's muskets were unloaded, he had them fire what the colonists took to be a victory volley and give the traditional British battle cry of "Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!" which was used to intimidate their opponents. Smith's junior officers suggested that they return to Boston while they still could, but Smith decided to continue the mission he had been sent to carry out. So they formed up and continued their march on Concord, leaving the stunned colonists in their wake, many wounded, others dead and dying. This is what is known as the first strike match of the American Revolution. If nothing else had happened that day, and the regulars had retreated to Boston, there might not have been an American Revolution. Instead, the second strike of the match occurred later that day in Concord at the Old North Bridge, where the Patriot militia first fired upon the King's troops, which was an act of treason, punishable by death. The third strike of the match occurred during the Redcoats' panicked retreat back to Boston, with the Patriot militia firing at them at every step. On April 19, 1775, the most important day in American history, the colonists defied the most powerful, well-trained army on the face of the earth at the time. They wanted to govern themselves and not to be ruled by an overbearing, tyrannical government in a distant capital. They were willing to sacrifice their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to secure the freedom we enjoy to this day. John Adams, who would later become the second president of the United States, after observing the destruction left by the American Revolution, wrote, "Posterity, you will never know how much it cost the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you make good use of it. If you do not, I will repent in heaven that I ever took half the pains to preserve it." Thank you.